What's up, everyone? It's your boy Shaft, aka That Mill Guy, here with another video. But today we're talking about the banned and restricted announcement for January 25th, 2022. That's right, we've already had the Pauper Bannings, but as we're going to see, there's going to be a banned and restricted announcement affecting multiple formats on the 25th. Now that's pretty spicy. I think there's some conversations to be had about where we think some of these bans can be going and what to expect. And hopefully I can use this video to kind of prep some of y'all, give you some conversation points for any of you that want to talk about it with your buddies, and stay prepared. So first and foremost, let's go into the announcement itself with Wizards of the Coast on Twitter tweeting out the Pauper bans that recently went forth. And now this is important just because the Pauper meta recently had a Pauper roundtable kind of team made to discuss changes in the Pauper format, similar to how Commander and the EDH format have their own hierarchy group that looks after bans and manages the format. So this is actually really cool. At first, we're gonna go to the bans in a second, but at first I was actually really happy about this. I used to be a big Pauper Savant kind of pre-COVID. Now when I say Savant, as in like I played it a lot, I followed it a lot, but after that, after kind of Paper Magic went away, I didn't really push it. But this kind of round table is really great. And like, honestly, let's just get right into it. With January 20th banning restricted announcement, we had ATOG, Bonder's Ornament, and Prophetic Prism banned out. Now, initially, my reaction was, this is bad. I hate this. I hate everything about this, because I'll tell you what, my two favorite decks in the Pauper metagame were Boros Midrange and Pauper Affinity. Yeah, of course. So, you know, like, two of the linchpin pieces in my two favorite decks, some of my two favorite decks in Magic in general, obviously got banned out from under me. So initially I was upset, but if you look through this article, it is so in-depth. Like, look at the write-up, all the explanations. For anyone that doesn't play Pauper, read through this, and it's so well written. It's very easy to follow, and you understand why something is banned, even if you don't play the format itself. So if this is the direction that Pauper is going, honestly, I might just hop back in. Like, I love to see stuff like this, and you know, being headed by Gavin Verhey, like, I think this format has some real promise. For any of you that's looking for a new format to play, Pauper is truly one of the best formats out there, and now that it's got this behind it, hop on it. So that's going to be Pauper itself, but really, we need to get to the obvious here with the banned and restricted announcement. The going into the constructed formats that people play en masse, the first thing that I think no one's going to be surprised with, generally that anyone that follows constructed formats, is going to be the legacy changes. Now, legacy, we can just look at it by percentages, and I really wanted to bring this up for that. Notice how 20% of the metagame is a Delver, and the next big percentage at 7% is Reanimator. Then at 6 is Elves, 5. You'll notice how this is a combo deck, combo deck, combo deck, combo deck. Like you'll see mid-range strategies and combo strategies, but the big thing that they're doing is they're trying to race Is It Delver, because this is essentially the mid-range control deck of the format. Ragavan, Dragon's Rage Chandler, has taken over this format, and that just leads me to the first card that's probably going to get banned out of Legacy right now, because they've been talking about doing this BNR for so long after Eternal Weekend. They should have banned things before Eternal Weekend, but they're going to do it now. Ragavan's going to probably see the axe in Legacy, which is crazy to me, that in the sense that, you know, a card printed in 2021 can actually get banned out in Legacy. It's crazy to me, but, like, you know, new design, new philosophies and everything. This has to go just because of the tempo you get out of it. Now, you're worried about it casting your creatures in Modern, your Inquisition of Kozilek in Modern, whatever it is. But imagine this getting dashed out in an empty board state, both players are top decking, and then you take your opponent's Ponder off the top. You've won that game. Like, I don't think some of you truly understand the value this card gets in such a high power format in Legacy. So this is probably going to get banned out under. The real discussion is Daze. And this is one that people have been throwing around for a bit. And now I don't know if this is, it's seeing its time to go in Legacy. I think in a lot of ways, this is one of the big polices of the format. We have stuff like Force of Will, Wasteland, things like that keep the format in check in a lot of ways, and Daze can be seen in that as part of the blue suit. But in also another way, this card can be seen as restrictive in the sense of what it provides to the blue decks in terms of protection, anti-combo, just honing the metagame into something a little bit more narrow. With Days Gone, it could potentially open up some other options. We still have Force of Negation. We still have like random stuff like Foil, which probably won't get played, but I'm saying there's free counter meta spells out there if people really wanted to force it. So potentially this could just force the game into just playing more threats instead of playing stronger, less amount of threats and just protecting it. So Days is actually a pretty interesting option. I don't think it's going to get there, but I'd be really interested to see it go. But I think it's going to be Ragavan out of Legacy. And I'm 90% on that. I really feel like that's going to be the big one to go, and I think the Legacy community agrees. But in large part, we need to get to the heart of the issue with the majority of viewers on the channel here, and it's going to be discussing the modern format. What's going to change in the modern format? Because they did say multiple formats. And now, first and foremost, we could just acknowledge the fact that nothing's going to change. Modern, potentially, a lot of you just think, you know what, it's in a good place. And in some ways it can be, right? There's a lot of variety in the decks. There's a lot of decks that are doing well, that can really get up there in the challenges and in the tournament list if you are a good pilot of it, if you have a lot of experience. That's what Modern's been for a little bit. But that's a boring discussion. We're here to talk fun things. So let's get right into it with the Modern metagame itself. What are some of the things that we could look at? Well, it's pretty diverse, right? We have, the big mana strategies in Amulet. We have the combo strategy in Crashing Footfalls, mid-range strategies, aggro, control, mill, whatever it is, it's all represented. But there seems to be some common threads amongst everything, as many of you Modern players already know. So let's get right into it. First and foremost, Legacy likely banned card, Ragavan Nimble Pilfer. I don't think this card is going to get banned. I don't think this card is going to get banned out of Modern. I actually think this is completely fine in Modern. In a lot of ways, all this card does is forces you to play more removal and checks you for that. And I think a lot of decks should have been doing that from before. And just because this card got printed, I think it's forcing people to have better deck building habits to deal with something like this. Because in Modern, it doesn't do anything necessarily busted. It's a really powerful card. It's a really, really powerful card. And I'm not trying to get underneath that. It does everything it does really fairly. The problem is that in formats like Legacy, it steals cards that are unfair because the deck is all about eking out as much value as you can out of every single CMC. Whereas Modern, you're trying to do that. It's just the card pool isn't as powerful and doesn't lend you to that as in Legacy. So I think this is perfectly fine in Modern. As with the next card that some people have talked about, Prismatic Ending, a card that's really replaced Path to Exile in terms of a removal spell, and I think rightfully so. I don't think Path to Exile is actually a good removal card at all. I think it's a great sideboard card. There's a lot of strategies out there that would love to use Path to Exile out of the board. They can't deal with big creatures. I'm thinking of decks like Burn that want to use this because Prismatic Ending just doesn't capture things like, obviously, Primeval Titan. You can't get to 6 colors, folks. You can't get to it. So Prismatic Ending, on that note, I don't think will get banned either. I think this is the type of card that White wants. I think this is what Modern needed to provide a little bit of diversity. I think if you wanted to ban something out of the control decks and White-based mid-range decks or the multicolor mid-range decks, I think we have to look at other things, which, I'll kind of briefly mention later in the video. But I don't think Prismatic Ending goes. I think this type of removal is what we need. 1-drop removal is very key, and it helps speed up the format just a little bit, and I think that's important, right? There's a lot of things in this format that are dirtily, Siege Rhinos and reanimation spells that cost 4. We need to speed that stuff up, folks. That's boring gameplay. But the last card that I want to talk about that likely I think won't get banned is going to be Urza's Saga. A lot of people hate this and the play patterns it makes, but at the end of the day, this is a pillar of the format right now. Again, it doesn't do anything busted. The format's technically adjusted to this as well, right? We're seeing decks play more Blood Moons, decks mainboarding Spreading Seas, not only because they can bounce it with ETB effects, but also when you Spreading Seas or Blood Moon a card like this, it just completely disappears. A lot of decks are just using this as their primary threat, right? You'll see the Jund-based strategies nowadays just playing Elvish Reclaimer and then Urza's Saga as a way to just eke out threats, right? Just one for one, you that, and then if you manage to deal with all that, well, they still have their regular Tarmogoyfs, they have their Croxas, whatever it might be, to deal with you there. So Jund's doing Jund things, and I think Urza's Saga in a lot of ways is just going to end up being a pillar of the Modern format. This isn't this isn't doing anything busted. You still see the Murktide decks winning. You still see Belcher doing pretty good with its results. You still see a variety of these strategies doing really well in the challenges, in tournament results. A lot of these decks don't play Urza Saga. So you have ways and you have strategies and you have cards that act around this card. So it's not pushing anything to tier 0.5. Even though Hammer is a very popular strategy, you know, the famous joke is that everyone has a positive Hammer matchup. But realistically, you do. The great thing about this deck is that if you don't have your answer at that time, the deck's just going to win. Hammer's just going to run you over. But that's the great thing. Just like Ragavan, Urza Saga decks being a little bit lower to the ground forces you to have the right piece of removal at the right time. And I think in a way it enforces positive deck building and, well, it enforces better deck building. I don't know about positive, that can be a little bit subjective, but I think it forces better deck building strategies subjectively so that people can just round out their thinking when they're building their 60 a little bit better. So again, Urza Saga, I don't think is going to get banned, but we need to hit the heart of the issue. So I wanted to go into Goldfish and talk about the top spells being played in the format right now. So we obviously see in top spells in the bottom left, we see very low CMC cards or free spells in a lot of ways. So Expressive Iteration, not surprised that being 2. Force of Vigor doesn't even really count because that's a free spell. The rest of everything is really just 1-drops in a lot of ways. Expressive Iteration gets a pass just because this card is, oh lord, this card just feels like an instant at sorcery speed sometimes. I don't know, but Lightning Bolt, EE, Thoughtseize, Mishra's Baubles, and then the top cards played overall: Lightning Bolt, EE, Thoughtseize, wait, I skipped something. Everything on this list is 1 or 2 CMC, except for the top creature played in the modern metagame, Lurrus of the Dream Den. Come on now, I was gonna get there. Come on now. We got to talk about the craziest companion, the craziest creature, the craziest creature to be printed in the last 2 to 3 years of Magic in general. Like, I mean, okay, obviously you have things like, you have cards such as Hogak and whatnot, but those cards are banned out. This card is still here. We still got to worry about this card. You know, Uro got banned out. We still got to worry about this card. This card is still here. Even with the companion errata, Lurrus of the Dream Den is everywhere. And any deck that is close to taking advantage of it, it's probably better you drop like the 2 to 3 higher CMC cards that you have that cost 3 or more, the permanents that you have, to just work your way around to playing Lurrus of the Dream Den. Even Hammer's done that, right? Hammer used to be a full Stoneforge Mystic package playing like Cauldron Complete and stuff like that. But this deck slowly adapted to the fact that, okay, Stoneforge Mystics would just be here to get Hammer and all that, and then Shadow Spear, whatnot. Lurrus of the Dream Den just helps solidify that, and this is doing that to almost any strategy in the modern format. Boomer Jun playing Bloodbraid Elf Liliana the Veil is not even a favorite deck anymore. You're just playing low CMC permanents, just like Ragavan, Tarmogoyf, and then Graveyard Hate spells with Urza Saga, whatever it is, you're playing all of that, and then you just have this insurance at the end of the game where if you wanted to grind against these strategies, you have the ability to play Lurrus, put it in your hand, and then create that long game grind. And you have this kind of lightning rod in Lurrus as well, because it forces people to play around it. You think that someone's going to put it into their hand, so you hold back that Inquisition of Kozilek. You think that someone's going to play it, so you hold back that removal spell that you want to hit them with the Goyf, but you actually need to save for Lurrus. So it forces these play patterns and these deck building ideas around it, people mainboarding concepts like this, so that concepts like Mass Graveyard Hate, Nihil Spell Bomb, Soul Guide Lantern, stuff like this you can get out of Urza Saga because it's so free. You have so many decks playing stuff like Lurrus of the Dream Den. Where is this card really gonna go? Well, I mean, Hammer Time, Death Shadow, we have Mill with it, Jund, and I think out of Burn as well. Yeah, sorry. So I think out of that list, that's everyone here. Just looking through it right now, there's obviously more if we go down and kind of expand the metagame here. There's going to be more, but Lurrus is everywhere, and I think this is going to be the type of card that gets banned. And I think this is what we're going to see. We're going to see Ragavan banned out of Legacy. We're going to see Lurrus of the Dream Den banned out of Modern, and then potentially we see some more things banned out of it as well. I mean, I think those are deeper discussions to have in terms of what they believe is going to be the design direction of Modern. But I think just at a baseline, Lurrus is a thing that's kind of restricting deck design in a lot of ways, because it's just objectively better to build your deck around Lurrus and make sure you have access to that in both senses. Unless you're trying to do something extreme, make an extreme metagame call. Being a mill player myself, I could make an extreme metagame call, like against the Mill Mirror. Lurrus of the Dream Den is not going to be a card that I likely need in that format. So I could in that matchup. So post board, I could just board in a shuffle effect in the Mill Mirror to have access to that, to have that easy out against my mill opponent, and then as well drop the Lurrus, because I probably won't be dealing with that anyway. But with that in mind, I think really the way to take companions is just to print more. I think that even if you ban Lurrus, it doesn't solve the companion problem. This mechanic sticks around for a while. I'm not sure if, because of how persistent it is throughout, or ever present it is, evergreen throughout most constructed formats that can get these companions, these creatures to work in their sideboards, I think it's just better to print more. This is not like, unless you blanket ban all of them, which then would be probably the biggest blunder in R&D history. I don't think they want that being the face of their design here, which they could, and that could be a really cool, mature step for a design team. But I think, you know what, it's better to just print more. Give us a reason to not play Yorion. Give us a reason to not play Kahira to pitch the elementals. Give us a reason to not play Lurrus of the Dream Den to decrease the CMC of our mid-range decks. Give us a reason to not play these. Give us more options. Lutris, being, as of the recording this video, has been seeing more play recently, and that's been really fun. We had Zerda decks. We had the combo decks out of the Kraken. I'm forgetting the Kraken, that you have to play even CMC creatures, but you get to play all of these variety of decks, and obviously that changed with the Companion Errata, but I really think printing more, making this an ever-present mechanic, and allowing us to manipulate our sideboards more is the direction that Wizards want to go. Because in a lot of ways, if you think about the design of things like Lessons, cards that allow us to manipulate our sideboards, play around that, we already had that in Moss with on Moss, whatever, with Karn the Great Creator at 4 CMC, creating like wish boards as an ever-present mechanic in Eternal formats. This wasn't really a thing outside of combo strategies or niche decks, and now wish boards are everywhere. So we are seeing the ever-present evolution of the sideboard, and I think the companions were a step forward that might have been a little too early, but I think is the necessary evil for the next step in evolution of Magic, just being able to manipulate a new zone in the sideboard. We've obviously seen the Exile Zone not truly being the Exile Zone. You can manipulate, take advantage of the Exile Zone, use the Exile Zone with other valuable cards, bring cards back from the Exile Zone as well. It only makes sense that sideboard becomes that. And now their excuse is going to be best of one. You have access to these cards in best of one. It's like you have sideboards in best of one for Arena. But this has an ever-present effect on constructed formats as well, and that's why I think we should be printing more. Now, this is going to be the part of the video where I talk about Modern Mill and how these changes might affect that. So if you're watching just for the sake of Modern, you can turn it off. We're just going to end it there. I want to talk about how this banning could affect Modern Mill. Now, I think nothing's going to get banned out of Modern Mill directly. I don't think Tasha's Hideous Laughter is here to go, Archive Trap, whatever. I would actually be very surprised, and I think being very surprised would be an understatement. But I think Lurrus of the Dream Den likely being banned, I think that's going to be the direction it goes, and it has some minor effect on Modern Mill as well. So I just want to give a big shout out as well to user Ravenwing in the Mill Discord. We obviously have a lot of people 5-0ing, and people like Tybalt doing well in the challenges, but it was nice to see someone like Ravenwing, who doesn't really play challenges a lot, get on there, work hard for it. 14 plays 6-1, so shout out to you, Raven. Want to really showcase your list, because I do like a lot of options in it. It reminds me of the Mill decks of old, so I had to. But a deck list like this, we can see some of the things that we can bring back with Lurrus. So we have Mesmeric Orb in the main board as an option to bring back with Lurrus. We have the Hedron Crabs out of the board. We have things like Tormod's Crypt, Soul Guide Lantern, things like that we can bring out with Lurrus of the Dream Den. But in a lot of ways, these options don't change with Lurrus gone. In a lot of ways, this deck doesn't really change, because we still want to play hyper efficient spells, and we still want to play the best cards available to us. We just might have a slot to play one or two more cards, and our trade binders become a little less kind of stacked up. We can pull cards out of there, maybe play them, but in a lot of ways I don't think Lurrus banning actually changes mill a lot. Again, not only because we're going to mention some cards that we can play, not because of that, but also because I don't think we actually want to play high CMC cards, right? We want to make sure that our mana is being as efficient as possible in mill, just because we're playing to such an extreme, and I've talked about this ad nauseum here, but just playing to that extreme, playing these hyper focused spells that do exactly what you need to at any given time, that we want to be as efficient when we're using our mana, and so we want to play low CMC stuff. Now, some of the cards that we might get access to in terms of playability, again, first and foremost, Ensnaring Bridge. With a card like this, I don't think this is actually a good card in the modern metagame right now outside of Karn Wish boards. Obviously, a deck like Tron that's looking to grind at that point, if you're going Karn the Great Creator into Ensnaring Bridge, you're probably in a pretty bad state anyway, and so you're trying to catch up right there, right? Like, you're trying to even the playing field. So that's where something like Ensnaring Bridge is important, especially being at 3 CMC. But I think this is going to be very tough because this is just going to be a very awkward top deck in a lot of ways, and I think people are forgetting that the modern metagame is faster than Ensnaring Bridge. Right, we're a mid-range strategy. We don't really dump out our hand that well a lot of times. If we do, we have to be winning or we're straight up losing because we lost all our resources. So it's hard to make a card like Ensnaring Bridge work. So I'm still not on Team Bridge. For all you in the mill Discord, I think Ensnaring Bridge is a bad Magic card in the current modern metagame. And I don't know, maybe something gets printed to change my mind on that. But nah, this card ain't it. But the next card that I think has some space but might be counteracted by the things that I was talking about earlier here is Ashiok Dreamrender, having the ability to stop your opponent from searching, so stopping the Urza's Saga, exiling your opponent's graveyard, stopping Reanimator strategy, stopping graveyards from getting cards back with Lurrus of the Dream Den, all these type of different interactions. Very powerful with something like Ashiok Dreamrender. It's very mana safe in the sense that, if you just have black mana, you can cast Ashiok. If you just have blue mana, you can cast Ashiok. So our mana shouldn't necessarily be a problem for casting something like this. So that's always nice there. And then just over the course of its CMC or the course of its loyalty, usually can mill at least 8 to 12 cards, if not 20 at its full, because sometimes it will get attacked into by a Ragavan, a Dragon's Rage Channeler that's obviously a 1/1 because you've been exiling. So it will get attacked into 1 or 2 times, but then you get the ability that you need. You've stopped your opponent from searching with the pack to get the Titan. You've stopped your opponent from searching with the final tick of the Saga on Urza's Saga. So it's done its job, and that's really what you needed to do. So Ashiok is going to be pretty nice there, but again, from what I was saying before, I still think Modern Mill wants to be playing the most hyper-aggressive, the most efficient spells it needs to play. So Soul Guide Lantern, Engineered Explosives, Tormod's Crypt, I still think these are going to be the options en masse that us modern millers want to be using, just because 3 CMC is a big ask, right? 3 CMC right now is Fractured Sanity, which, if you're not cycling it, is a finisher. It's also Tasha's Hideous Laughter, which is a finisher, right? These are cards that once you cast, you win the game. Ashiok is a mid-range piece. When you cast a spell, you don't necessarily win the game. We're not in a Faithless Looting era anymore, right? Like, we're not in these eras where graveyards are that all in. They're not an extension of graveyards are an extension of the hand, really. They're an extension of the deck. You just have better access to them, right? It's like instead of being randomized, your cards in your deck are now in your graveyard and they're non-randomized. They're in an order, of course, but they're in order, but you get access to all of its perks with things like Delirium, right? If they're in your graveyard, you don't have direct access to them. You can draw from them. There's flashback spells. You can use them, but you get the ability to use some of the perks in them. So the graveyard concepts are different. People are able to use them a lot quicker. So it's hard for a card like Ashiok Dreamrender to come down on turn 3 for mill and make a big swing. But I think other strategies are going to be able to take real good use of something like Ashiok Dreamrender. And that kind of brings us to the end of the video. I kind of babbled on for a little bit, so let me know what you think is going to happen in the banned and restricted announcement. Let me know what you think about my thoughts. Do you think one of the 3 cards I mentioned, Ragavan, Prismatic Ending, Urza's Saga, you think one of them are going to get banned? You think Lurrus gets banned? You think nothing gets banned out of Modern? It's just going to be a legacy, and that they're trying to fool us with the wording of saying multiple formats? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, but we're going to end it there. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out. Remember that even the impossible is possible, and as we ponder that thought, I hope you'll join me next time as we take a glimpse into the unthinkable.